Let's go to Florida State Clemson. That game goes to overtime in the noon window. Florida State 31, Clemson 24. Guys, the question that I have off the top of my head, Florida State, are they a contender or a pretender after beating Clemson on the road in Death Valley, where it takes a lot of guts to pull one out against Dabo Sweeney?
I think they're a contender at this point. I mean, this is what we would have said preseason, and let's not lower the expectations. This is a team that, in Clemson, that a lot of people picked to go to the playoff. A lot of people thought, hey, this is going to be one of the teams that we should think is a favorite. This is a team that, everyone's going to think this will be the team to go win the ACC. They're back. The defense is good. Klubnik is going to take the next step. And, I mean, so far we've been pretty disappointed in the big spots, but why change the expectations now? Florida State went on the road and beat a good Clemson team. Not the same level Clemson team we thought they were. Definitely not the elite type of Clemson team we're used to seeing, but they still went on the road and beat them in a tough game where, I mean, as you can see on the stats, they didn't necessarily outdo Clemson in very much. They barely outpassed them. They didn't run the ball. Clemson has the one turnover, of course, that massive Cade Klubnik getting destroyed. One of the toughest hits I've seen a kid take in a while. But yeah, like they lost on first downs. They weren't nearly as good on third down. So I just, I look at this and I say that they didn't necessarily outdo anybody, but they outplayed them in the competitive moments when they needed to, right? They missed the field goal at the end, Clemson did. And so what does Florida State do? They go drive the field and put, a little bit of fear of God in them, right? They do what they need to put some drives together and keep almost punching it through. I don't think that they played their best game at all tonight or this morning when they played. I don't think they played the best game at all, but they ended up beating a good Clemson team. I think that this is a contending team. I think that this is a team that can go all the way. And we're waiting to see what they can do when they put it all together, right? I don't think that they've completely, maybe outside of that LSU game, don't think they've put everything together in all phases for 4 quarters.
Well, and they're doing what good teams do, right? They're finding a way to win on the road in adverse circumstances. I know Boston College isn't a giant slayer, but it was a red bandana game, and they were up 31-10 in that game. And they just knocked off the juggernaut for the last decade in their conference, a team that they hadn't beaten home or away in a decade. So, yeah, they're a contender for the college football playoff. They are here to stay, and they are going to make some noise up and down the schedule this year. So, I think their biggest test left is definitely, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I know they play Miami. That's going to be a huge test. I know they play Florida at the end of the year. That might not be, who knows what type of team Florida is going to have by November. But the schedule is setting up for them to make a run to the college football playoff. We would have been ecstatic, and we would have been saying preseason, if they go 1-1 against LSU and Clemson, they're right there in the college football playoff hunt. They just went 2-0. So regardless of what Clemson's done, they're a more talented team on paper. That is a very talented defense that they were able to find a way up and down the game. They didn't lead until overtime, but they found a way to stay in that game. Their defense stepped up in big spots. You talk about the defensive touchdown. You talk about, just the pressure they put on Cade Klubnik all game. Jared Verse had another phenomenal game. That defensive line was giving a lot of problems. And, yeah, this is a team that has the pieces to make a run. They have an elite pass rush. They have an all-time Heisman quarterback. And they're only going to get better as the season goes along. They haven't played their best football yet. They're 4-0, and they've beaten 2 of the best programs in the country.
That's a great point. When you step back, first, when you look at the stats, you may go, oh, Florida State had another down game. Maybe they got lucky. They weaseled their way into a win. It's very easy to kind of make excuses or make generalizations that Florida State's a pretender, not a contender. Garrett, I would say they went on the road into one of the hardest places to win. Did it look pretty? No, absolutely not. But you know what? There are no pictures on a scorecard, right? And no matter how lopsided the offensive totals were, you almost get outgained by Clemson by 100 yards. You rush for 22 total yards. It was the Jordan Travis show, or it was nothing for Florida State. Their secondary got picked on by Cade Klubnik, who we've had real questions about all season long. And yet, as Trey mentioned, you put yourself in a position to succeed. You have a well-timed blitz from Kalen DeLoach, who just pancakes, Klubnik, and then is able to scoop and score that to tie the ball game at 24. Yes, you take advantage of a 29-yard missed kick to force overtime and then
The
win.
Disney movie that was not, right? The
Oh.
Disney movie that was not.
All of that to say, though, it may not have been pretty. It wasn't sexy. Were you the peak Florida State team that we're expecting, a team that you probably need to be consistently to go to the playoff? No. And yet, not playing your best was good enough to go on the road to Death Valley in a tricky spot with all the momentum against you, the vast majority of that game, and beat the Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, and that's the point, is you have to be able to not play your best and still find ways to win. And when you don't play your best and you find a way to win by 7 on the road at a team who's been one of the best teams, not just in your conference, but in the country the last couple of years, when you can find a way to do that, you're a good team. You're a really solid team. And this is the type of team that, if they are one of the ones to go on the road to a Notre Dame or on the road to an Ohio State or one of these teams we just talked about being one of the top teams, I believe they can compete, right? I just put a couple of these stats up too. Love this connection that we have between Jordan Travis and Keon Coleman. I love the connection there. The 5 catches, 86 yards, and both of the receiving touchdowns that came from Jordan Travis going to Keon Coleman. Love the connection there. When you have that kind of a connection, that's going to help you go on the road as well, right? That's going to help you go on the road. That can help you when you have that kind of a strong connection between two players. But at the end of the day, having the experienced quarterback, having the defense that'll step up, and just doing the little things right. It doesn't seem like Florida State has always been that going to dominate you in all 4 phases or all 3 phases for all 4 quarters, but they do the little things right. They take advantage of their opportunities. They don't just fall on the fumble, they scoop it and score, right? They don't just, oh, you missed a field goal, well, that's cool, we're going to go and try to make the best of it. They go right back down and try to put another touchdown on the board to try to end the game. But and again, they, are in an advantageous spot. They scored the touchdown, then have to play defense in overtime. And what do? They stack up and they stop you. Fantastic job all the way across from Florida State. I think this is one of the best teams in the country. I think that they should be treated as such. And I think that, when you're not playing your best football and you find ways to win, you should be considered one of the top programs in the nation.
I'm so curious to see at the end of this season what Florida State's road looks like. Because, Trey, as you mentioned, the path there to the college football playoff is becoming more and more clear, right? Now you have a couple of challenges in Miami. Florida looked plucky last week. They only scored 22 against Charlotte this week, so who knows what the Gators are. But Florida State, I think, is, to me, emerging as a real contender in the ACC.
Gracious him. How